the user of PC is the default user who is created and it's configured when you're creating the server. As you log in right now to the server, you can do the changes and you can adjust the server to your preferences, creating your custom user and make your custom configuration. Now, this user is allowed to do the sudo okay, I'm becoming root. I'm gonna open this on each. Okay. For the purpose of this training, we will be installing the MySQL server. But let's install in each server. You install MySQL server. Okay, now MySQL server is installed on both servers. Let's check. Let's try login. Okay, it's not started, and now let's start. Service MySQL v start. Okay, MySQL server starts. Let's try login. Okay, and like you see, we are able to log into server as root. Fantastic. But now we are ready to set up the replication. We can work on the replication. Okay, exit. Now, first thing which we want to do in preparation to set up is update the configuration. How the replication is working? Each server is writing their own bin log. That means any change what happened on this server means the insert update which created change in this database, it's writing to the bin log. Now that bin log is shipped to the next server and that server is applying that bin log. But now how the server know that it has to apply this bin log? Each server has to be set up with the server ID value, and that server ID value has to be different in every server which is part of the replication. Okay, in this situation we're doing just simple replication active, just two servers replicating to each other. Tomorrow you may want to build bigger replication. You may have multiple servers which will be acting as master servers, which will provide the data for the other servers, which are slave servers, or the standby servers to populate the data for other application. Okay, but now the key point right now here is to update the MySQL config file. MySQL server config. Okay, and here in this server, in this configuration file, you see the data directory socket, which is used to make the connection, login, and PID. You can do the modification to those values and set based on your preferences. Those are the default values. Now, in this configuration file, we have to add server config. Okay, that we're gonna add this as a server ID equal 1 for server 1. And also there is the one more. Okay, for server 1 we have auto increment 2 and then offset 1. That now here my expectation is that the server 1 will creating the ID as 1 3 5 7, when server 2 will create ID as 2 4 6 8. This way, when those two servers create different set of different IDs, the primary table can join, and in that case can be replicated. Okay, again, if you're using the auto increment value 1, 3, 5. Second server is using 2, 4, 6. And now you have offset, right? And now those data can replicate each other. Now, in the case that both servers will creating the same ID, 1, 2, 3, it's gonna get glitched and it's gonna get failure on the replication because the primary key exists in that server. Okay. Okay, and now let's edit the same file here. Okay, once we set this, we have to restart the server. Any change to the configuration file, you have to restart the server. Okay. Okay, and now let's do the show master status. Okay, and when we're doing the show master status, we see the bin log and position. This is the current position on this server. That now, whatever changes we did to the server and we restart the server, when the server is restarting, it's starting the new bin log. Now, we did the preparation. So far there is nothing changed in that database server. That now we're gonna start from this place. To start, we have to create the users. We have to create a user who can connect to that server and pull the bin log. It means that user have to have a special right. Now on server 2, that the server 1 have IP address 21, server 2 have IP address 22. Now let's creating the users on each server. On server 1, let's say server 2, we're starting with server 2. On server 2, we're gonna create user which have access from server 2. Okay. Then we create user and we're giving the replication slave access to that user and then flash privileges. Okay, now on server 1, we're creating user which have access from server 2, the IP is 22. And run replication and flash privileges. Okay, perfect. But now we set up the MySQL. Now there is the question, can we make the connectivity now? Let's try. Okay, let's install telnet. Okay, the connectivity, we have to validate if between the two servers, which in the same subnet, we can make the connection on port 3306. Why port 3306? Because port 3306 is the port of the MySQL. Okay, the default installation. You can of course change and adjust, but the default installation is port 3306. Telnet DB1 3306. Okay, we see that we have an IP address, but port 3306 is not available. Okay, there is the two reasons why this port is not available. One, there is the blockage on the security list. You have to allow network connectivity. Okay, by the default everything is blocked. You have to allow. That means we have to add ingress and we have to add egress in our configuration in our security list. Now I'm gonna use the default security list and I'm gonna add 10.10.5.0/24 and port 3306, allow MySQL connection. Okay, I won't be just more specific, and I'm adding the CDR only for the public network. This is just the public network. The devices inside this public network where the servers are, only those devices will be able to make the connection on port 3306. And we have to add also egress rules. Okay, the egress rules, it's everything allowed. That as long as you have everything allowed, that every server can do ingress call to another server to outside. If you want to modify this and change and be very specific, then you want to change this rule, remove the all protocols, and then add your own rules. Okay. Okay, and now let's try one more time. Okay, there is no route to host. Now the next step is the local firewall. Okay, we have a local firewall, but now because I'm using the firewall on the network layer, I'm gonna disabling the firewall on the server layer. I don't need this firewall to be active. I don't need this to use the resources of the server, because my network firewall will define what I want to allow or what I want to block. IP tables -L, and now you see there is the clean, there is no internal firewall. And let's see, we have a prompt for MySQL, we have the connectivity. Okay, and this same we want to disabling the firewall on server DB2. And we want to check from DB1. Okay, I'm installing the Telnet on DB1. Telnet DB2 3306, and I have connection. Good. But now I have the servers. I have network prepared and I have servers prepared to establish the connection between those two servers. Now we also create the users. Before we're gonna create the replication, let's validate our users if the users are able to make the connection. MySQL -u rep user -hdb and minus password. Enter the password for the user. Okay, it made the connection, fantastic. And the same, we're gonna use the user for db2. Okay, we're trying right now set up the connection between the db1 to db2, and let's check. Okay, we have connection. But right now we set up the two servers. Two servers have MySQL database installed. We set up the user are able to log in each other. That we are right now prepare for set the replication. Good. Now on server 1, we're gonna do the show master status. Okay, and you see the position change because I create the user. This gets written to the database, but that statement that user is created, I don't want to replicate because that user was creating on this database only. That now I want to replicate from this position forward. That once I start replicate and creating databases and create data, this I want to replicate to the other server. Okay, that now we're going to create now we're going to create the new now we're going to creating the change master statement. Okay, on server 1, we're gonna use this. That db1 bin file, and position is 866. Okay, this is on server db2. Now on server db1, we can take this and execute on server db2. Okay, and now you see the show slave status. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up. That we can see the all information. Okay, it's still okay. In show slave status, we have the information about what is host, what is user, what's the port, the bin log file. That now the db2 server, it start pulling the data from db1. Okay, now let's see this. Let's see the, let's say, show databases. Okay, we have those, and then show okay, we have the same set of databases. Now let's creating database here. Create database db01. Okay, and now show databases. Okay, we don't have it now. Why? Show slave status. Okay, we don't have yet because we just create this, we just define the master, and we have a definition, but now the slave IO and slave SQL is not running. That means, okay, we just defined, but we don't bring in. And like you see, we're creating the database here, and we have a DB01 on this server, but this is not applied here. Now we have to start slave. Okay, and show slave status. Now you have this two value, yes, yes. That now, this is the very important indicator if your slave is running. Slave IO means you bringing the binlog file, and slave SQL, I'm applying the binlog file. Okay, now you may have a two situation. Your connectivity is lost and now your IO is not working, or you bringing the files here, but you have a failure on the SQL layer where, for example, duplicated primary key error. That now your SQL is not able to insert the record because have a error to insert, and now it stopped executing the binlog. That this is the very important when you're watching this. And now when you see the databases, now we have a DB1. Okay, now use DB01, and in the database we're gonna creating the random table. Okay, and we're gonna just insert some records. Okay, select start from random table, and we have some random value. Now if we want to insert one more time, what will be our ID? Because this is what ID is most important, what we're looking for. Okay, and we have 3. That now this is what we're expecting. We're expecting on this server values 1, 3, 5 as an auto incremental value. Now when we're gonna go to DB2, we're gonna expect 2, 4, 6. Okay, but this we're gonna insert here when we establish replication to this server. Okay, now use DB01. And let's say, let's check if our data get replicated. Okay, and we have a data replicated at this values right now. What we have in server 1, we have in server 2. Replication is working. Fantastic. Now let's set up the replication to server 1. Okay, now we on server 2 we do the show master status. Okay, and we have a binlog and we have a position of that binlog. Now we know we didn't change any change to the server 2, that we can just start from this position where we are right now, because after we establish replication, then we're gonna start do the changes to server 2 and observing. Okay, that now on DB1 we have DB2, server 3 user, and then binlog. Binlog, we're using this binlog, and this position. Okay. Show slave status. Okay, and we see that it's defined, the IO is not running, SQL is not running. That now let's start slave. And what is important here, okay, we don't have yet the master server ID. This is the important values here. Those two servers has to be different, and this is coming from our configuration. Server 1 is set with 1, server 2 is set with 2. Okay, and we have a server 2. Good. And now you see the replication has read all, and we have data. Good. Now to this table here in server 2, now we're gonna insert the record. That I'm gonna go here and copy the insert statement. Okay, and let's select. Okay, and now we have a value 1, 3, and 4. Okay, but now we have an offset. And when we do the select in database 1, the data is inserted. Okay. Now we can keep inserting the data to server 1 or server 2, and you see the data is replicating, and each server have their own offset values, and each server will be able to creating the unique record, but that unique record will be inserted to the opposite server, and this will not cause the replication error. Okay, my gratulations. If you follow those steps, if you follow this training, that you set up the two servers, you set up the MySQL server, you establish connectivity with those two servers, and you set up the replication between the servers. You use the Oracle Cloud Network with the always free tier. You set up the virtual cloud network, the network configuration. You have open ports that you start using the Oracle Cloud technology and have a taste how this can work. My gratulations to you. If you're interested with the more advanced training about the replication, where we can dive more deeper into the replication and especially testing the replication and recovering replication, join my training on the advanced replication technique and recovering replication, where we will be building the more advanced replication environment. And especially with this environment, we're gonna focus on creating the errors and identify the replication failure, how we can recover. Okay, this, like you saw, this is like 1 hour or so, and we build the replication, it's working and great. But what we gonna do if this replication fails? How we gonna identify the replication problem, where it stopped, what to do, what was executed, and how we can fix this to continue replication. Okay, join my advanced training for the replication error. See you there. Thank you.